Hello, welcome everyone. So now we're going to wait for another 5 minutes, and we're waiting for our guests to arrive. Thank you for your patience.
Hello, so sorry because my laptop is not working and joined from my mobile for the time being.
Hello.
Okay, should I start or someone will start the interview?
Okay, so we can start that. Hi, welcome to our first global training. Today, Moab Sherif, who has played important roles in COY&COP organizations, is with us. He will share his experiences and information about these conferences. So, Moab, you can introduce yourself if you want. You may have the floor.
Okay, yeah, hello everyone. My name is Mohab and I was part of many initiatives during COY&COP, and there's actually part of the creation. I was part of the team that created the first space at COP. So, and I was also part of the organizing teams of Conference of Youth in its 17th edition. I hope you can hear me. So, yeah. So I'm happy to answer all your questions, and sorry for being late. My laptop was going crazy.
No problem, we are already waiting for our guest. So, we can begin our questions maybe now, if you are ready.
Yes, definitely.
Okay. So our first question is, what's COP and COI, and how they work?
Okay, so COP and COI, it's a COI. I will start with COI. COI is under the youth constituency, the official youth constituency of the UNFCCC, United Nations Climate Change, United Nations Framework on Climate Change. It works. It's a youth initiative. Its aim is to build capacities for youth pre-COP to be able to to be able to understand the policy making that's happening during COP, and during COI. By the end of it, this results in a global youth statement. This global youth statement is then taken to COP to show what the youth are really demanding for, and before COI even, there is a process of conducting policies worldwide from local COIs, local conference of the youth. So you could see them in your country, I'm sure some, and I think some North COIs take place in Turkey, I'm not sure of, but in Egypt, for instance, there's an COI team, in Africa there's an COI team, etc. And for COP, then later on is the conference of the parties where stakeholders gather to make agreements such as the Paris Agreement. They made also the Kyoto Protocol. These are the most two prominent and most active agreements that happen during these conferences. So this is how it works. And during COP, it's a mix of pavilions and negotiations. But what happens to make these agreements happen? It's always made in the negotiation rooms and things like action for climate empowerment, adaptation, and mitigation, etc. I hope that answers your question.
You have mentioned Paris Agreement and Kyoto Protocol.
Negotiators will agree that both every country has a role to contribute to not just the developed world. They have all the countries agreeing to actually lowering emissions, and in addition to that, to introduce something new, which is called the NDCs, nationally determined contributions, which goes through a process called the stocktake every 5 years. It's a 2-year process. They re-evaluate the status of the Paris Agreement, and this year is like the global stocktake is going to happen in the UAE. They're going to do the global stocktake and see how far they have progressed in this NDC timeline, and what are the new NDCs that should be added. And the NDCs are formally submitted through the UNFCCC portal by parties. So, and this was introduced last year, where they submitted the new NDCs.
Okay, so let's talk about your experiences in COY&COP.
Yeah, I would just say that COY&COP was unique this year. It was actually much wider than last year. Many delegates told me about that. Generally, COY serves as a policy-making preparatory place for COP. Like, it's just a small place, and COP is a huge space to engage with stakeholders. So I would rather say COY is very useful if you want to understand the process. For COP, I would rather say, as I mentioned, it's a mix of pavilions and negotiation rooms, and it tends to be very exhausting if you don't know what's going on. But I would rather say, like, this year it was very amazing that for the very first time that we have a youth space actually in COP. Like, it was never featured before in the 26 COPs before that, which is crazy, because you just need a place to rest, need a place to network above all, need a place to work on, to have meetings. So this youth space served as this type of networking space and this type of relaxing space, etc. As well, in this COP, actually, there is another win for youth, which is being recognized as stakeholders, especially during the ACE negotiations, which led to something very fruitful on the way to COP28. Like, youth are going to be negotiators, and actually opened applications to invite youth as negotiators, which is very crucial in terms of youth representation. It's just the beginning, but it's a very groundbreaking step. And as well, this year was as well of semi-good news that we got the loss and damage fund accepted finally, and they start starting like implementing it throughout this year. So I hope that it's more equitable and more helpful for helping the frontline communities. So yeah.
Okay. What are the experiences of other young groups in them?
Yeah, I would rather say each year more and more people are coming to these places, and nothing more to add other than this year was a victory for youth, and like Yongo and other youth-led groups like everything, they were more united this year, and the messages which was, I would rather say, powerful. And we managed to, for instance, unify our message on most of the damage that ensured its success throughout COP27.
Okay. What is UNFCCC? What about that?
As I mentioned this in the beginning of the meeting, it's United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change.
Okay. And what about the International Day of Declaration? These declarations.
Yeah, it's being like built during COYs and COYs. It's a global use statement where they send the statement to stakeholders in order to see which they should focus on during the negotiations. So yeah.
And how are these climate reports designed?
What I couldn't get
the climate reports, in these conferences.
Yeah, it's like, as I mentioned, it's what happened at these places, like loss and damage, adaptation, mitigation, climate finance. These are all the things that happen in terms of decisions, in terms of indicators on how we are moving forward, especially when being included and delivered in the indices.
So, how do you evaluate the changes that took place after COY&COP organizations, these conferences?
Yeah, for COY and COP, especially for COY, and we read that as well, is to be actively part of the constituency. There's the constituency of Yongo. They tend to offer chances to be part of the conference as a whole, and being like an accredited organization of the UNFCCC, which would allow you to be able to participate in these conferences.
Okay. So, what should our members that are interested in do to participate in these organizations? What can you recommend?
Yeah, to be engaging, to be able to learn, and to support other youth, and as I mentioned, be part of the youth constituency, and I am sure that one or more opportunity will come up to join these places and to learn more. Like Yongo is very fruitful in terms of building capacities for policy making. So yeah.
Okay, so do you have anything to add, to share more?
No, other than what I mentioned today, I'm happy what I said, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak today. And I have about 10 minutes if anyone has any questions.
So we can take the questions from our guests. You can type in chat if you want.
So Mohab, I have a personal question for you. When did you decide to become a climate activist? Why did you decide to become a climate activist?
Yeah, actually, I started by learning and observing what's happening within my community, especially coming from a country that's always in the front line from the global south, where if we see it in that way, we're always on the front line. So I decided to learn what's happening and be able to join what's happening and seeing the decisions that we need to push for as a future generation. We need to push for ambition action. This is what motivated me constantly to become an advocate for change, I would rather say. I started around 2019. I can't remember when actually, but I remember around this period I got engaging and so many opportunities, and what helped me actually to become engaging is people who are working hard and making sure that this education is delivered for young generations, like in schools, etc. And you can find, if you fight as well for climate education, I would suggest that you follow COY&COP and SOS International. They really tend to help with these types of things. So yeah.
Can I ask something? All right. Okay, great to have you, Mr. Mohab. My name is Michael from Nigeria. So, I've never really been climate activist because I've seen the effects on the environment. So, in my community, every year we do have flooding, and the flooding starts the entire field. So, they talk about supporting countries to fight some of these things and all that. But it's crazy because, okay, some of these things have been done. There are a couple of organizations that support countries that suffer from some of this climate change, so they could, help prevent it or stuff like that. But it's not happening. So as a climate change activist, which I'm hoping I will become one, that's basically why I'm becoming interested in things like this, because it doesn't seem like something is happening. So, supposed to do? Am I supposed to fight the government or to force them to do something? Because every single year when this happens, the government just comes, maybe they put out, you hear some budget, like millions of dollars have been put out for this issue. They just come and they bring food for the people that have been sacked from their home. They bring food, they feed them, and at the end of the day, that's it. Once the water goes back, everybody goes back and they continue. So what do climate change activists need to do? Because you can say whatever you want, the government is not correct. The corruption here is just so much. So how can we force them to start, putting in preventive measures against these things? Because we can't keep trying to need to prevent it from happening again. So what will be my job in this?
Yeah, I can relate to that as a fellow African as well. We tend to face lots of issues within our governments, and I would also say to be I remember as well, many Nigerian communities filed a lawsuit against Shell a few years ago. So possibly connecting with those people that could help you to file a lawsuit on let's say the Nigerian government on logging, etc., will be able to connect you and I would say that if you followed up recently, that actually the language of human rights in terms of climate justice just got passed by the Pacific Islands, and it just got agreed by the UN in the General Assembly last week. So this is huge. We should be able to use these as evidence when talking with our governments. But I would say to be safe above all. I'm glad to hear that you were at the LDC 5. I'm sure you got connected with a couple of people who work on the human rights. You could come with them about that, because this is what happens. They're doing human rights violations, they're doing environmental violations. But still, now on very lines, got passed by just type in the Pacific Islands resolution, and everything will come up to you. In terms of that as well, I don't know if you know this group, but there's this group, Stop Ecocide International. They tend to help with these types of engagements and protests. Maybe you could ask them for advice and see the lawsuit or try to connect to the lawsuit that was filed against the Nigerian, the shell company with the support of the Nigerian community. You need to get together as community, and then the government won't be able to do something like that. Just to communicate with the public about the numbers, communicate with them about what's happening on ground, and let them see what's actually happening. And I'm so sorry to hear that it's happening everywhere in the world. It's happening in many parts of Africa. It's happening in the Congo rainforest. It's crazy. So yeah, I hope that at least gives you some sort of hope, because actually after fighting many years, like I would say, Nigeria have been fighting shell for many years, and now we are starting to get victory. So don't lose hope in that.
Can you tell us more about the history of COP and COY?
I give a very brief about that already, but I'm happy to walk you through. So what happened is the COY, was agreed on by an agreement of the UNFCCC. The UNFCCC was agreed back in between 992 to 1994, which got established, and then they hosted the first COP in Germany, as we know, in Bonn, Berlin, and in Bonn they generally have these technical meetings before COP every year. This is like a history. Then they gathered, and then they started implementing what's called the Kyoto Protocol. In brief, they asked for developed countries to lower their emissions, but the US and other countries joined and said, no, we cannot do that, because some other countries have also contribution to emissions. I cannot really agree to that, because not as global north countries. Global north countries have the most responsibility, but in terms of equity, maybe the Paris Agreement in that respect. And then later on, they came on to announce the national determined contributions in 2015, and they started focusing more on other aspects, and which is more on a national basis. Like this to strengthen the adaptation agenda. They focused on 1.5 degrees, which is very vital for the islands and for everyone, basically, not just the islands. If we pass this threshold, and we are on the way to pass it by 2030. So this is like very, very important for us when we are working. That is to always push for 1.5. Like we cannot afford to lose the 1.5 ticking point. It's just if you're observing the IPCC reports, you'll see that we are well closing and approaching to this. Like during COPs, they are focusing, especially in recent years, we're focusing on loss and damage, we're focusing on adaptation, but still we need to fight more for adaptation, especially we coming from global south countries, we need more adaptation than most, because we don't have much to contribute to on the medication aspect. Like Africa has about 3.8% of the global emissions. So it's not that much in comparison to China, who has like 35% of the global emissions. So see the balance in the and the US obviously. So you got to see this and follow the policy making teams. And actually, Yongo did like a series of a capacity building on the politics that's happening, climate policies that's happening. I would really suggest like type Yongo and see the playlist that they did last year with the Secretariat of the UNFCCC, where they talked about like adaptation in particular. They introduced every aspect of adaptation and what's happening in the politics, what is the global goal on adaptation, what are the national plans of adaptation. So that's by far what's happened. We are a bit slow in terms of the diplomatic way to approach it, but still, if we keep moving forward, there's still hope. But it's gonna like put hope very, very little if we one day, for instance, stop engaging, stop reuniting, and do as if what we did back then was the Kyoto Protocol, to ignore it. And I'm happy the countries that are moving forward with the Paris Agreement. Actually, some indices were use-friendly, like they included the use in terms of participating in the new indices, which is giving a positive sign for use. And having this year that use are officially like in a form of stakeholding positions. That as well really gives us more power in terms of influencing the decisions that affect us the most in the end. So yeah.
Okay. One more.
Yeah, you can continue.
Okay. All right. So I think I have two requests. I have a request at this point. One of them is that. So the COP28 coming up in UAE in November. So I don't know. I'm making it as a request if there is, because personally for me, I would really want to attend, and not just about attending. I have a couple of young people that I'm training to help, fight this issue, because it's really bad. Getting very bad every single day, and someone has to get up and do something about it. So, but then I do understand that these events, you can't just wake up one morning and attend them. You need to come through maybe the civil society, some of the NGOs, youth groups, and stuff like that. But then it's sad because when opportunities like this come out, I'm telling you, Africa is a wonderful place. I'm going to say, like Nigeria, very swiftly, but corruption is too much. So when opportunities like this come out, this is what they do. If I'm in government and let's say I'm in charge of the youth, an opportunity comes out for people to go and represent Nigeria and learn. What I will do is to just gather my friends, my family members, or maybe have some people pay, and I put them in the list, and then we all go and have fun. So there is no opportunity for people that really want to be part of this, people that would that this would help them to do something, to actually participate. And I assure you that in this conference you will see so many Nigerians, but then many of them are not even interested in what's going on, because they are just there, like having to buy. So I don't know if there's going to be any opportunity, for us to attend. We'll be taking care of our flight, accommodation, everything, but we just need to be invited for the conference. Some of these young people, I think that will really be great. I think I'll be addressing the organizers. That would really, really be great. That's number one. Then secondly, is also that if there is anyone here that, has also some experience about climate change. Recently, I've been in partnership with local government areas in my state. So I'm trying to organize a sensitization program on climate change. Those for children in these areas that are always affected by drought. So we're starting this month. We have every single day we'll be visiting different schools to talk about climate change. So if there's anyone that has some things to teach, I don't mind. We would love to invite you on video, just like Zoom, Google Meet. Maybe talk to the children. You can actually do a pre-recorded session, just a very few minutes, so that I'll play it for these children to listen. I don't feel like we could start doing something if these young people can be, they will understand that this is what's going on. They don't know what's going on. All they know is that every year they have to pack out of the house because the whole house will just be flooded. So they run away, they go to churches. I IDP camps, and when it goes down, they come back. So we need to let the children know that this is what's causing this is what's happening, and this is how it can be prevented. So that's the best I can do right now to coach the young people. So if there's anyone that can, volunteer, be on video with us, teach the children, I will really, really be glad. I'm willing to provide my details to the organizers if anyone wants to reach out. I will appreciate. So these are the two things I want to ask, and if anyone is granted, I will really be glad. So thank you so much for this opportunity. Thank you.
Yeah, I will. Thank you for this question. Second question. Actually, one of my great colleagues is Nigerian, and he's working in the educational aspect as well on climate. So type in COY&COP and reach out to them. And I don't know if this is their email or not. You can just double check from their website. But type in COY&COP, they do educational campaigns on climate specifically, especially teaching the teachers and the kids at school to actually know what's happening, the process, etc. And you can just take a training with them and see how you can teach it in school. It's as easy as that. And in terms of accommodations, it's the issue of every conference, and in terms of finding opportunities and getting people and funding everyone to come, it's the issue of every conference, especially to us Africans, adding onto that visa issues. So actually last year, COP, they introduced a form of support, and that Boy thankfully tried to provide more accommodations in a let's say more accessible manner. So I would suggest following that, and as well, Yongo, they tend to invite lots of people, invite additions and connections with your local NGOs, and especially the one accredited by the UNFCCC. They will provide you access to COP through badges. So go to the UNFCCC website, they will announce the official accredited NGOs, I think after June this year. It's generally after the ASPs, which is the subsidiary bodies meeting in Bonn, Germany, where they do the technical dialogue before COP and the negotiation tracks. And this is in terms of accessing badges, but in terms of accommodations, I cannot say other than following up and having connections and connecting with the delegations to be able to help you out. I can echo that, because I come as well from Africa, and I know how hard it and how inaccessible these places are for us. But in the end, and I want to echo this message as well, these places do not really show the reality of the world. They don't really connect with the reality. The process is I would say, rather inefficient to deliver for the frontline communities, from people who are actually on the front line, people who are losing their homes every day. So yeah, for instance, why after let's say 28 COPs, we're still talking about targets that should have been fulfilled decades ago, not just years ago. So I would rather they keep on working, keep on focusing on actually delivering the community in that manner, and see what's meaningful for your community. This will pay off more than just I have met people, sadly, who came to these places just to research, nothing other than taking on meaningful action, and others came for just let's say having fun, which is not okay. People who have more are more impacted should be more represented in that manner. And a COP presidency this year is trying to help with that, but still we need more. This is just the bare minimum. We need more inclusivity of people, especially people from, let's say, the Pacific Islands, people from the islands, small island developing states, Africa, people from the front line in Asia, etc. We need more people who are affected, especially people who are more connected. I always say that the people on the front line are the most people who could generate the solutions because they see the crisis as it really is. You cannot, let's say, take someone, and this is just an example, by the way, just my opinion there. You cannot take someone from, like, let's say, in the US and compare their experience with someone living in the Maldives, for instance, or Mauritius. It's a very different aspect. So you have to include everyone in the room, in these closed rooms, to actually ensure equity. And these people, I'm sure they will deliver for their communities in the end. So inclusivity is very crucial. Collaboration is very crucial. So, yeah, I'm happy to assist you, Michael. I will put my email in the chat, and possibly they will follow up with you about it. And I'm happy to answer any queries. And as I mentioned, I'm personally working in education projects as well. If you need some form of advice, people to reach out to in that manner.
Okay. I would like to remind you, our guests, that a form has been sent to our chat, and this form will be important for to receive your certificates after the training. So, if you do not have them, please inform us. Two of our participants are raising hands, so Dilkan can ask his question.
Yes, I will answer to Steve's question in the time meeting. There are lots of gaps, I would try to say, especially coming from people who are gonna witness climate crisis the most, yet still the last people to do anything about it. I would rather say now we're not the last people, which is amazing, but still we're well afar. Like back then, I had this conversation with a relative of mine who actually back then they didn't use plastics, which is mind-blowing for me. Like I believe that they used plastics back then, but in the old generations they didn't use plastic. It was actually introduced in the industrial revolutions as a corporate advertisements, etc. The thing is, industries back then defied science. They did lots of lobbying within community to convince people that they're going in the right track, etc. Now everything is clear and obvious that this was not okay. Coming back to your question, I just wanted to provide you a background of how companies lobbied and tried to defy the science, tried to hide the science from the community, tried to hide the science from everyone. as they wanted to avoid accountability. Now they are taking on accountability. That's why they are trying to fight hard as well. Like seeing things like Stop the Wheel, for instance, gives me a very the alarming thing of how, like, let's say, we need more stakeholders who are used actually to take on this fight. Like you find great examples, especially coming from people who are most impacted. They tend to take on the best ever approach with this. They tend to take on what we as future generation want for ourselves. We want to have a stable future after all. Most of us probably in the near future are gonna run and fight for just a safe shelter in the near future if we keep it going in this track. Like coming personal story in Egypt, we have Alexandria, we have got about millions in northern Egypt that are gonna be affected by sea level rise. So this is crucial, where they are going to go, how we are going to support them if this happens. So this is how our generation perceives it. The older generation, especially from most impacted areas, perceives it as some of them feel responsible. I would not say that not all of them feel responsible, but still they didn't view it as we view it. They couldn't like pressure and push as we did because the science was hidden from them. And now we can see the science, so let's act upon it. And above that, we can see what's happening to our communities. So that's more powerful because the science sometimes, especially the best available science, as you said, doesn't really show that what's happening. It just shows numbers. Behind these numbers there are lives. There are people losing their homes. So I hope this helps you, gives you a bit of perspective how we see it and how the older generation see it and what's the gap between us, the gap of communication. So we need to unite more than ever on what's happening before I would rather too late. It's now not too late. Later on it's gonna be too late. Like in a few years time from now it's gonna be very too late if we keep going on the same course.
We will have a screenshot for our Instagram page. So if you turn on your cameras, we will be grateful. Mom, thanks for joining us today. It was our first global training, so we are so happy for that. Do not forget to follow our Instagram page, to follow us, and meet in the next meetings.
Goodbye. Oh, yedik. Evet.
Goodbye.
Shukran, Mahab.
Yeah, shukran everyone for inviting me today, and I'm happy that I hope some of my insights helped you. Just one final note before all you leave, especially people focused on education. I echo COY&COP. Soon we're gonna launch something in relation to education and approaching stakeholders in a way. I cannot spoil the surprise, but stay tuned. In April we're gonna announce something in relation to that in terms of how to push for more education and education in a stakeholder position or in approaching stakeholders. So follow the space and see what they're going to do, because soon we're gonna do some stuff and which will be interesting, especially if you're still trying to campaign and providing education to schools and community, which is above all the upcoming generation needs to know more than we did. Like I faced barriers in terms of accessing knowledge. I don't want them to face barriers in terms of accessing knowledge. So yeah.
So we are at the end of our program today, our training. If you do not have further questions, we can leave. And thanks for again for again.
Did you record my email if you need to outreach to me later on? Because yeah.
Okay, then bye.